Well, I'm joined now by Laura Young, who's known on socials as Less Waste Laura. Hello to you.
Hi.
Thanks for coming in, Laura. Good to see you. What do you think about this idea then, a deep clean for Glasgow? This has been suggested by the staff that are in charge of it, but do you think that a lot of people would agree that was necessary?
I think it is. You know, I think our cities are getting really run down, and obviously that might have impacts on things like wildlife, but also just for people, you know, living in communities where bins are overflowing, there's lots of litter, graffiti, chewing gum, all the different things that we've just seen in that footage. And so I think it's important that we actually bring our cities and all urban areas, places, communities back up to scratch. But what we need to have is councils funding that. You know, we can't keep having cuts to these really essential services and then expect them to get any better. And also because this is a public health issue, you know, we know things like rats and lots of other horrible things can come alongside overflowing bins and lots of litter. So it's something that really needs to get improved, but we need to see proper funding behind it to make sure we've got the staff and we've got the services and the reliability of that. And we can't have it changing all the time, every time there's a shortage in that funding.
Now, as you say, we're talking about Glasgow, but it could be any Scottish city. Where does the responsibility lie? Because obviously councils are there to do their job in terms of refuse collection and recycling. But we all have a responsibility here, don't we? As individuals, as businesses as well, to minimise the mess that we're making.
I'm definitely a believer that we all do have a part to play. And so thinking about bins, trying to use your food waste bin, get all your food waste separated, because that's what can attract things like mice and rats. So if you don't have a council collected food waste caddy, request one, you can get them. You can often sometimes get the bags as well for free. So we can do our part in separating food waste out. We can also do our part in even just basic things like trying to squash down your cardboards and your boxes to try and make sure that you're not having overflowing bins. And for people like me who live in a flat and you've got shared bins, you know, really trying to be sensible, you know, don't just leave it lying there and thinking it's someone else's problem. You know, take responsibility for that. But I think the councils could also help us a lot as well. There's lots of services available for things that can get recycled, like electricals, clothing, other items, but they need to help us figure out where that goes so that we don't overwhelm the general waste bins. So there's lots that needs to happen. But we also need to find that sweet spot, because if we make bin collections too often, people maybe don't care about minimising waste and we become a bit wasteful, and that's not good for the environment. But if they're too infrequent, we then can have the overflowing bins and the litter and the public health issues. So we need councils like Glasgow and the rest across Scotland to help us find that sweet spot. And I know that coming into this Christmas period, there are people, particularly living in places like Glasgow, who are going to see a very reduced service. So we need to find the happy medium. Yeah. So there's a bit for us to do, a bit for councils to do, and also businesses, right? They can help us by reducing the packaging, because often we are stuck buying excessive amounts of waste because we're forced to do so.
Just quickly, are there any countries or specific cities where you think we could get some inspiration to do this better?
I mean, Scandinavia, that's always the one.
They always seem to do these things well, don't they?
And we've struggled. Okay, if I'm allowed to say deposit return scheme, okay, that was obviously a failed policy that didn't come into implementation this year. It's something that the UK government, as a sort of nation's approach, are trying to look at. But there's other things that we could be looking at to try and say, well, how can we be getting rid of our waste better, like deposit return schemes for bottles and cans? How can we also be looking at better curbside collections, better signage, even just things like we have 32 local authorities. All the bins are different colours. People can recycle some things in one council, not another. How can we standardise that a bit better? So there's lots of things that we can do from places like Scandinavia, or even culturally, places like Japan, who have got a lot more respect for even just, you know, you would never see chewing gum on the ground in Japan. So lots of countries we can take ideas, policies and inspirations from, and there's lots of ways that we can improve it here in Glasgow and in Scotland across the whole country.
Okay, lovely to see you, Laura. Thanks for coming in tonight.